Shalom, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the topic of community building in a time of Corona. My name is Tehila Rubin, and I'm the Deputy Director at Masorti Olami, and also the one that has been spamming you with all the emails. Together with the Rabbinical Assembly, we're very excited to see how many people from our communities around the world are joining us today. It's inspiring seeing everyone come together as one community to learn how to approach these high holidays during such different circumstances. Before we officially start, I'd like to take a minute to briefly explain the Zoom translation feature so you can hear the simultaneous translation in English, Spanish, or French. One of our speakers, Rabbi Alejandro Avruj, will be speaking in Spanish, and the rest will be speaking in English. So therefore, it's really, really important that even the English-speaking participants follow these instructions. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see controls and settings. You'll see one that's called interpretation with a little picture of a globe on it. You just need to click on that setting, which will then give you all the 3 language options. Please just select which one you would like to hear the discussions in. And in addition, you'll see the option to mute original audio, which is a feature that mutes the main speaker and only allows you to hear the translator. It's totally up to you if you guys want to keep that on or off, but you can switch throughout the discussions. And lastly, we want to encourage you guys to ask questions. If anyone has any questions throughout the discussions, please submit them in the chat box. We'll be selecting the questions to read out loud during our Q&A session later on in the event, obviously time permitting. So now it's my honor to hand over the virtual microphone to our friend and partner, Rabbi Jacob Blumenthal, the CEO of the Rabbinical Assembly and United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, to officially start our event.
Thank you, Tila, and thank you for everything you've done to help organize our event today. We're so thrilled to have you as our partner. I also want to thank Rabbi Mauricio Balter, the Executive Director of Merkaz Olami and Masorti Olami, and also Rabbi Phil Scheim, who's the President of Masorti Olami and member of the board of Merkaz Olami, for serving as our sponsors today, for welcoming us and making today possible. I want to make a short introduction in just a moment, but the first thing I would love for us to do, hundreds of us from all over the world, is to just take a moment, take a deep breath in, and let it out slowly. And feel your body relax. Let's try it one more time together. Take a deep breath in. Try to hear each other from all 4 corners of the world. Breathing in. Hold it for a moment. And then let your breath out very slowly and relax your body. The reason I'm asking us to do this is because this is a moment, I think, for all of us of tremendous anxiety and even some fear. And it's important for us to take care of ourselves. And a big piece of taking care of ourselves is making sure we are breathing deeply and thinking deeply. Thinking today of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who famously said, Kol haolam kulo gesher tsar ma'od, va'ikar lo lefached klal. The whole world is a very narrow bridge. And the main thing, our main challenge,
Rabbi Steve Schulman
joined the meeting,
is to not be afraid. My question is, what's on the side of those 2 bridges? What's on each side of that bridge? There could be lots of answers to that question, but I often think that on one side is the past, and on the other side is the future. And we are standing on that narrow bridge at every moment between past and future. The past is often something that we hold for inspiration. We look to the past to understand where we've come from, to draw inspiration and knowledge. The future, I hope we hold out as a space of hope, of a better space for all of us. But in the moment that we are in, we feel that sense of fear being on that narrow, wobbly, rickety bridge. And certainly these last few months I think that the challenges that we have faced each in our own community as leaders, as rabbis, as clergy, these are sometimes very difficult, challenging, and even fearful moments. So Rabbi Nachman comes to tell us, we're on that bridge. We know that there's fear. How do we move past that fear? And I think that our time together today shows us one of the most important ways that we do that, which is by coming together, by understanding that we're not on that bridge alone. It is narrow, it is crowded, but it is crowded because we are all there together. We are all together in this moment between past and future, between a past that we can look to for inspiration, an uncertain but hopefully hopeful future, but in this moment, a moment of great uncertainty. And we need to draw on each other's wisdom and presence to gain the strength that we need to overcome that fear and to move towards the future. Today's presentations are meant to inspire us, inspire our thinking, our programs, our approach as we move as communities through this very challenging time, as we find ourselves on this narrow bridge. You may find an idea that really will work immediately in your community, or it may be that you are hearing from some of our experts ways that you might change our thinking and adapt some of the things that they're talking about to your own community, or simply draw inspiration from the fact that these leaders are helping their communities move through this challenging time and give strength and inspiration to you that you will be able to do the same leading your community in this challenging period. I also want to remind us of something that I spoke about last week briefly at our session, which is that we as a movement are not defined as a movement because each of our communities looks the same. In fact, this past year, as I've traveled to different parts of the world before the pandemic, one of the things that was so inspiring to me was to see how each community that I visited in various parts of the world approached Jewish life in unique and different ways. But all of us share the same approach, an understanding that Judaism evolves in time and place to meet the needs of the Jewish people in those places. And that is a very powerful idea. And it's one of the things that I hope will come to life as we talk together this morning, that we are in a unique moment to be able to evolve Judaism into something that can meet the needs of the Jewish people in this very challenging time. That not only we will be on that bridge together, but all of the people in all of our communities will feel each other's presence. We may do things in different ways. We may make Judaism our own in different ways in each of our communities, but we share this same knowledge, purpose, and understanding of Judaism as a space of vibrancy and creativity and inspiration. Today we will have 3 speakers. Each will introduce their topic for about 10 minutes. You're welcome to add your thoughts, comments, ideas, and also questions in the chat room in the language of your choice. And then after each of our speakers has finished, we'll take some of those questions and ask for some responses. Our entire call today will last about 75 minutes, so it'll conclude about an hour from now. So first, I'd like to call on Rabbi Guido Cohen to speak a little bit about building community in this time of pandemic. Rabbi Cohen is one of the rabbis at Aventura Turnberry Jewish Center. It's been there since 2017. Originally from Buenos Aires, he served for 4 years as the Masorti rabbi in Bogota, Colombia. Prior to that, he was the rabbi and head of Judaic studies at Tarbut, one of the largest Jewish day schools in Latin America. He's a graduate of the Seminario Rabbinical Masorti Meyer in Buenos Aires and the School of Law at the University of Buenos Aires. He's married to Daphna and is the father of Tobias, Amos, and Aiden. So Rabbi Cohen, if you'll begin for us.
Thank you, Rabbi Blumenthal. I'm very happy to be here. Actually, it's the first time ever that I'm in a Zoom that is being translated to many languages. So I think I get to say Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechayanu v'kiyemanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. There's always a first time in these crazy days that we are living through. So I'm going to speak about community building during these times of COVID, and especially as we are heading towards the month of Elul and the high holidays. And the first thing that I want to say is that I believe that we rabbis and leaders and lay leaders and professionals, we need to always have in mind that building community is what we do. I think it's not obvious, and we need to ask the question, what business are we in? And the business that we are in is the business of relationships and building communities. You know, sometimes it may feel a little bit confusing, especially for those of us that every Shabbat or every day during Minyan, we are facing a camera and looking at the spotlights and all this production hardware. We get confused and we believe that we are in the performance business. But we are in the community building business. And I think whoever misses that is missing the whole point of what we do. We are rabbis and lay leaders are the glue that connect people to each other and build something that is much larger than the adding up of each of the individuals. So one of the things that I think about when I asked together with my colleague, with Rabbi Jonathan Berkun, about what our plan for the high holidays was going to be, we told ourselves that we wanted to break the dichotomy between either people come to shul or we stream services. I believe there's a world in between coming to shul and streaming services. And if we think that the only answer to this context in which we are not able to come to shul is a Zoom or a Facebook Live, I believe we are going to fail on the relationships area. We are going to fail on the community building aspect. I don't know how many of you are watching services online nowadays, or even if you are on the side of those who are streaming. If you talk to people who are watching, I talked to a member the other day, and she said, your service were lovely. I was cooking dinner and I had my phone on the toaster as I was watching Kabbalat Shabbat. So I was like, okay, so we just spent 3 hours making sure that we can stream on HD 1080p stereo sound, and this lady was cooking spaghetti and watching services. So that's not the way I am going to build community. How am I going to build community? I am going to build community if I engage my people and if I empower them. I think this is the time of promoting do-it-yourself Judaism, for example. This is the time to giving people the tools so that they can live their Jewish experience in their own. This is a time of something that I want to call, just to connect it with a biblical quote that we read on Rosh Hashanah. I apologize in advance for the interpreters that are going to have to dance with this. But when God hears the cry of Ishmael in the Torah reading for the first morning of Rosh Hashanah, the Torah says that God listened to Ishmael ba'asher usham, from the place where he was. We don't meet people where we are, we meet people where they are. So before asking what is it that we believe is the best idea that we can provide them with, I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, what do they need? You know, many people don't need a streaming. Many people do need a streaming, and we are going to have a streaming for everyone, but many people need to see other people. Many people, let's be honest, many people come to shul on high holidays just to be seen. We joke about the lady that comes with a humongous hat every year to high holiday services. She comes to services so that people can see her hat. And streaming will not help her show off her fashion on high holidays. So I'm going to show you what we are going to do this year. And then I'll continue talking about other ways to develop relationships. So I think I'm able to share my screen. This is what the Aventura Thornberry Jewish Center is going to offer the community for high holidays. It's a menu. It's a menu of different things, and different people will be able to relate to these things in different ways. Our main course is going to be a drive-in service. We are not putting all of our chips on the streaming. We rented a drive-in movie theater whoever is translating to Spanish, we call this an autocine in Argentina, and people will be able to worship with us from their cars. We have already had some experiences like a Havdalah, a Siddur presentation for religious school. It's fully safe because people are inside their cars. Rabbis and clergy are going to be on a stage, on a bima. There will be a screen, and we will daven together. There will be an actual minyan. We will also provide people with the opportunity of coming to the main sanctuary. I understand that in some countries that's not legal, but here we have the possibility of opening the doors of our main sanctuary so that every person can have 5 to 10 minutes of private prayer in front of the ark. People will relate to the building, to the place where they grew up. Kids are going to be able to stand on the bima where they had their bar mitzvah. Couples will be there on the same bima where they got married, connecting with God individually. By the way, on the spiritual realm, I think we need to explore Tfilat Yachid this year as a valid option for finding solace and elevation during high holidays. Sorry, Tfilat Yachid, individual prayer. Then we are going to, we call this not so far from you, not so far from you. We're going to have the shofar roam all over our community. We will have pop-up short prayer and shofar blowing moments in parks, in communities, in condos, in different places, so that people can see the rabbis, people can see the Torah, people can listen to the sound of shofar. We're not doing this out of a halachic concern of, I know there's people who ask whether we can blow the shofar over Zoom. I'm not into that question. I believe people need to see it, even from their balconies. We will have the online services. We're blessed to live in a place where we can do tashlich. We have a huge coast here in South Florida, so we'll be having tashlich in the ocean in different groups. One tashlich for religious school families, another tashlich for the seniors, for the brotherhood, for the sisterhood, and all that. And lastly, and I believe this is very important, let me see if I can stop sharing my screen. I have 2 minutes left, I believe. We are going to have some kind of virtual experience where people can interact. We believe that it's very important that this year, not only people see the clergy, but we can see them. They can send Shana Tova greetings. They can see themselves. We're going to bring the Torah scrolls to the homes of the big machers that usually hold the Torah scrolls for Yom Kippur. And we are going to record them holding the Torah scroll. And in our streaming, you'll see them holding the Torah scroll. Will give people aliyot. We were among the first synagogues that without doing a Zoom, we started to find a way to bring people for aliyot. I really believe in the power for interaction and the danger of these wonderful streaming experiences on Facebook and on YouTube is that they miss the point on interaction. And I believe interaction is the most important things when it comes to building community. Okay, I only have 1 minute. I just want to say it is the small things that build community. If you ask me what's the most important thing of our Facebook live streaming experience, I will tell you the most important thing is what do we do with the comments that people leave during Shabbat after that. When someone says, this service was so powerful because I got to say a prayer for the refuah, for the healing of my first cousin, and they drop the name there, if I don't call on Monday and ask how is the cousin doing, then I fail in the business of building community. We have here, and with this I will conclude, we have here my dear colleague, Rabbi Avruj, who has, I believe, and it's not because he's here, I believe he has the best streaming service in Latin America by far. I watch it because there's a time difference, so often I watch his services before we start ours. And when I ask myself, like, what is it that I'm going to provide my members so that they tune into my service and not his service? What is it that is going to make someone choose Aventura Turnberry and not Amichai in Buenos Aires or Park Avenue Synagogue in New York or Bnei Jeshurun? I will tell you, the difference is I know my people. And when I call someone, I say, I know you have yahrzeit for your grandmother. I will be saying Kaddish on Zoom. Do you want to join? they are not going to choose the best quality performance. They are going to choose to be with their people, with their rabbi. I know Ilana, who invited me to this Zoom, likes my stories. I'm not going to tell the story of the cream cheese because I told it before, but last week a woman calls me in tears and says, Rabbi, I'm very sad. It's the first time ever that I'm not visiting my husband at the cemetery. And I happened to have a funeral on that day. So when I went to the funeral, after the end of the funeral, I know this is not very halachic, but after the end of the funeral, I stopped by the grave of this woman's husband, put a stone on the grave, on the tombstone, and took a picture and sent it to her. You know what? This woman will not care how good my streaming experience is. She doesn't give a cent on whether the sound is stereo, 1080p, we have two singers, a choir, or is it me with my low-level voice just mumbling the prayers. She will be there because I connected with her where she was and where she needed me. So I think my best advice for everyone is connect with your people, make phone calls, find them where they are, see what their needs are, and address them. Time is over. I have an alarm here. Done.
Hey, thank you, Rabbi Cohen. We so appreciate it. The creativity that's happening at Ventura, Turnberry, the options that you're giving your community, and also your reminder that community building is done one person at a time, one relationship at a time, and that the value of each of our synagogues is really in what it does locally, connecting with our members of our community. So such an important reminder in this moment. And so we really appreciate it. Next, we're going to turn to Rabbi Aviva Fellman. She currently serves the Greater Worcester community as rabbi at Congregation Beth Israel. She completed her bachelor's summa cum laude in religious studies at University of Pittsburgh, earned a master's in Talmud and Jewish law from Machon Shechter in Yerushalayim, and was ordained by the Jewish Theological Seminary in 2012. At JTS, she is proud to have been the first simultaneous daughter-father rabbinical student duo. Her father was ordained also at JTS in 2014, but she did it first. Aviva serves on the executive board of Worcester Interfaith, is active in committees in her community around homelessness and issues of race and inequality. She teaches about Judaism and Torah to students all over the city, in universities, in senior education programs, and through the JCC. And she works very hard to break down barriers to inclusion and foster acceptance of all religious spaces. Aviva and her husband, Ari, have 4 children. Aviva, we're thrilled that you're here today. Rabbi Fellman, please continue. She's going to speak with us today about how we adapt liturgy in this moment.
Thank you, Rabbi. So just as the Torah, with the Torah, the words that we recite each day, each week, each year take on new meanings, and our understanding and the way in which we relate to them shift as our situations change. We also will look at that with liturgy, but first Torah. In the last couple weeks in the Torah, Moshe got angry and hit the rock. That story can uncover some of how we might react to COVID, with additional frustrations, feeling cooped up, having extra stress piled on our shoulders, and to feeling alone. In addition, when Moshe and Aaron are then told by God that they are not going to enter the land that they were promised, I hear that we, the leaders, are the ones who set the example for the people. We can hear a call for our leaders and clergy of our communities to be the moral compasses for our congregations. Set the example by wearing masks, ensuring distancing and safety. And yet we are human and flawed, but as leaders, we are obligated to do better and should strive to become even better and more effective leaders. When we read about the daughters of Slofchad who used their voices to argue for land rights, we can hear how we should use our voices to argue for human rights and elevate the voices of the marginalized. And when we read about Pinchas's Brit Shalom with God, a covenant of peace that was incomplete, we are called upon to continue that holy work started by our ancestors in biblical times and try and bring about a world of peace, a peace that is still divided and incomplete, and yet so holy. So the same is true for our liturgy. When our shul shut down the building down in mid-March to help stop the spread of the virus, we moved almost everything online. At first, during our twice daily Zoom minyanim, some tefillot were changed. In place of the Psalm of the Day, we would add a pandemic-specific prayer that spoke to our feelings. We read poems by Naomi Levy about pain and healing, prayers for those recovering and prayers for those caring for others and on the front lines. And we borrowed prayers from others and other religions that spoke to what we were feeling. One of my favorites from the Ursuline Sisters of Louisville, from the historic St. Paul Catholic Church in Lexington, Kentucky, reads as follows: Prayer for a pandemic. May we who are merely inconvenienced remember those whose lives are at stake. May we who have no risk factors remember those most vulnerable. May we who have the luxury of working from home remember those who must choose between preserving their health or making their rent. May we who have the flexibility to care for our children when their schools close remember those who have no options. May we who have to cancel our trips remember those that have no safe place to go. May we who are losing our margin money in the tumult of the economic market remember those who have no margin at all. May we who settle in for a quarantine at home remember those who have no home. As fear grips our country, let us choose love. During this time when we cannot physically wrap our arms around each other, let us yet find ways to be the loving embrace of God to our neighbors. Amen. After a few weeks, as the days seemed to blend into each other and we seemed no closer to gathering in person than we were before, we switched back to Shir Shel Yom, the Psalm of the Day, because we needed and craved that structure as a way to count our days. This same approach is true for the high holidays, when we are craving something comforting and familiar, and yet this year, as really it always should be, the meaning for us may shift. Ya'aleh, a medieval poem that is part of our Kol Nidre liturgy, includes the line, Ya'aleh kolenu me'erev, may our voices rise up at evening. But this becomes more than just a plea that our voices and prayers be heard. It also becomes a plea that we again soon be able to sing together. Literally, Ya'aleh kolenu, may our voices rise in prayer and song together. Reframing the tefillot is a big part of an approach to liturgy. Another one of my favorite kavanot or intentions that I've come across and will be sharing with my community this high holiday season, especially as the parent of 4 small children, was shared with me by a congregant. This was in her mother's collection and was likely from a paper from the 1950s. A prayer for a tired, irritable parent. Healthy children make lots of noise. They sing, they shout, they belly laugh, they fight, they bang things together, they bounce things, they cry, they scream, they make lots of noise. They play loud. God, bless my healthy children. Give me new ears, ears that hear the music of their noise. Give me new understanding, understanding that doesn't crush their spirits with my intolerance and oversensitivity. Give me a new peace, a peace that is grateful for the sounds created by healthy children. So what do we do next? How do we do this hard and holy work of engaging and deepening our relationship to Judaism and ourselves? We connect, we continue to raise our voices and uncover layers of meaning in our tefillot, our prayers, and we join our communities so that we don't have to do this work alone. I want to finish or wrap up by touching on another theme of the Chagim that is woven into our prayers, the theme of tshuva, of repentance, of returning to ourselves. Rabbis are often advised to give the sermons they want or need to hear. So here's the short version of mine. This year, when I hear so many in our community ask and beg for things just to return back to normal, I find myself wanting to call out that normal was never okay. The world that we had before was not okay. and wanting to return to what was is also not okay. Robin Hobb, a science fiction writer, put it beautifully. She wrote, "Each circle spins off a circle of its own. Each one seems a new thing, but in truth, it is not. It is just one more of our most recent attempts to correct old errors, to undo old wrongs done to us, and to make up for things we have neglected. In each cycle, we may correct old errors, but I think we make many new ones. Yet, what is our alternative? To commit the same old errors again? Perhaps having the courage to find a better path is having the courage to risk making new mistakes. We are human and leaders, but like Moshe this holy day season, we have to be willing to take new risks, to make new mistakes, and strive for a better world. That is our gift this season. Thank you.
Rabbi Fellman, thank you so much. It was beautiful and inspiring to hear your thoughts about liturgy, both our ability in this moment to create new prayers and express the new prayers around the new challenges that are facing us, as well as thinking about how we take existing liturgy, existing prayers, and imbue new meaning as we see how they apply to this moment, both of which require real thought and leadership and a sense of intention. Finally, I want to introduce Rabbi Alejandro Avruj. He graduated from the Rabbinical Seminary in Latin America in Buenos Aires, the Seminario, with a master's in Rabbinic Literature and Jewish Education from the Schechter Institute of Jewish Studies in Jerusalem, and also has studied for an MA at JTS, at the Jewish Theological Seminary in New York. He's the rabbi of Amichai congregation in Buenos Aires, and since 2017, he's been the president of the Latin American region of the Rabbinical Assembly and a representative on the board of the Rabbinical Assembly and the Masorti movement. Rabbi Avruj, thank you so much for joining us. Just to note that Rabbi Avruj is going to speak in Spanish. So if you have not chosen the appropriate language at the bottom, you should, if you want an English translation, you should press for that now. Rabbi Avruj.
Hola, buenas tardes, buenos días.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon to all. Thanks for the invitation. Thank you, Jacob. Aviva, Tehila, Mauricio, thanks, Guido, for your nice comments. And undoubtedly, I agree 100% with you. The communities are the links, are the relations, it's the union between the souls. This time has shown us that it's not the bricks, nor the construction, nor the song you sing, but the links that we managed to create. Also, I want to tell you that the idea of speaking in Spanish, we spoke when we were discussing this talk. I thought it was important to communicate in Spanish here from the southernmost part of the world. We have things to say and to share, and I think that knowing one another and knowing that we are a global Tnuah, global movement, it was important to share this also in our language in Spanish. Inspired in this week's parasha, in this parasha, 11 times appears the notion of the place where to carry out the tefillah, the sacred places. When the text repeats several times and several rituals and several ceremonies we have to perform and peregrinations, it says, Asher b'makom asher imchar Hashem, in the place where God will tell you. It doesn't say Jerusalem, it doesn't say what the place is, it says God will tell us what the place is. And this year, we have all of us to help our people to build a Mishkan and a Beit HaKnesset at home. And that speaks a lot about our creativity and also about a major opportunity that we have as leaders, lay leaders, rabbis, with our families to make our families feel that their home is a sanctuary, that their house, as Guido said, is it's not in our hands to see whether the phone is by the kitchen, but we have to infuse in our families that each home can become a sanctuary and that our Beta Knesset can go into each of those places. I am not going to get into the halachic issue. I want to share with you several things that we are developing and thinking for the time before Yamim Noraim to get this spirit through that the home is a Beit Midrash, because somehow there is something that made us all equal. I mean, this pandemic made us all equal. All of us have felt inside what loneliness is. Loneliness and distance. So many people who are alone and who cannot get close to places or moments or tefillah with other people beyond the quarantine and the pandemic. Before that, we had many people who were alone and who were far from our community. And I think this opens up our heads so as to understand what it means to be alone. Many people will continue to be far from our synagogues and alone when all this is over because of geographic distances, because of health-related problems, because they cannot move, because they are in a senior center, or because it's cold, or because the kids don't let you go out. So this is a major opportunity for all of us to think how we can help our families to build a sanctuary in their homes and to realize somehow that loneliness that invades us all, and that is the first thing that the Torah tells us is not good. Lo tov liot al adam levado. So show all of us that the community is the best antidote for the virus of loneliness. And in that spirit, we are developing a number of initiatives to transform that place. For instance, now we have just launched a campaign so that all the people who have a shofar at home and who know how to blow it, and even if they don't, we have created an instruction page so that they can learn how to blow it. Through Elul, we are going to provide videos with shofar blowing from our people's homes so that we get ready for the high holidays. In Elul, every day we will have a shofar blowing from the house of one of our members. And I know that the question is, can you blow the shofar through the computer? Do we go out from the Chovah when we listen to it through the Zoom and not directly? The halachic level is high, and I said I'm not going to get into it. I have my own way of understanding this. I think that we inherit the rabbinical tradition of Tar Mosar. That is, when we cannot do things as we want to, we have to make them as we can. That is what happened when the paradigm changed and the reality of each of the Jewish communities through centuries. And this is our small contribution to the writing of the page of history in this time. So that's why we are going to be requesting the people to blow the shofar at home and send us our videos to broadcast them in Elul. And we are going also to create tutorials so that they can prepare their homes, and different tutorials in the day of the tefillah or prior to the tefillah. It's important to not to be dressed in the same way as every day, just lay the table differently, place the computer in a different place, uh, just put candles and just turn off the light and just use the light of the candles. Also send tutorials teaching the brachot of the different uh, uh, segments of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. No, they should know that they should dress differently. It's not the same to be dressed as we do every day at the time of Tefillah. Another tutorial that we are preparing is blessings prior to starting the tefillah in the streaming service. For instance, one of the way of shortening the morning prayer was to suppress Birkot HaShachar and explain the families what Birkot HaShachar is. And somehow we have blessings for everything, blessing before drinking a glass of water, before eating, before tzitzit. So we'll have a blessing before starting the tefillah. Birkot Shachar, teaching Birkot Shachar in a tutorial has to be short, and so that people can say their prayers before starting with the tefillah. Of course, we are developing two Maxor online. I know that in many places that is happening as well, and it will be available Maxor with the translation into Spanish to share it online and for people to have it. We are also sending out a tutorial for people to start preparing su challah gula. So there will be a space for community baking through the Zoom so that people can have on their table the challah as needed. So we will be sending out tutorials how to approach the different characteristics of Rosh Hashanah, the different blessings for the different food, the nice Sephardi tradition, and we are going to create a tutorial for people to follow that, and also a tutorial to prepare the people. Well, there's one specifically to prepare the people before Kippur and explain the different prohibitions of Kippur, but also so they know what are the things that they can do. Another thing that was discussed about Tashlich, we are thinking about an important Tashlich in the open air in one of the parks of the city that have lakes, and so we can have people to approach and feel the shofar face to face. And something else we are preparing both for prior Kippur and also for Erev, the second day of Rosh Hashanah, is to prepare at home for meditation. For several years now, the second night of Rosh Hashanah, we propose a tefillah that is totally different. The first one is the first night is the traditional tefillot with the traditional nigun, but the second night, and for several years now, we have implemented an experience of meditation. We know that the arbit for that night is very short, but the most important type, the important thing is the meditation, how we dress, without maxorim, without any light, just candles and a world of inspiration, respiration, and how through meditation we go through different images in order to get into the most powerful notion, which is a return to Teshuvah. So in the that requires also preparation. So we are preparing also a tutorial for that. It has to do with what I said before, to create the Avira, prepare this ambience in the house. So even though the people will be alone in their homes, they will feel accompanied by the Kehila doing all these previous ahana to get into that time of the tefillah. We will also have the time. Something we decided is that we will not do anything face to face, even if they allow with 50 people, 30 people, or 20 people. We have decided that everything will be done by streaming. No one will come to the community, not even the people who are honored for different things. The opening, the slow opening of the quarantine here in Argentina is a response to economic emergencies or to people being absolutely tired of being kept at home. This is now the worst time for us because it's the highest peak of death and people who are catching the disease, and it would be absolutely irresponsible to be opening the synagogues for 10 or 20 people. So if we will see later on that if we went wrong with that, we haven't risked the health of any of our members. And this is also an equalitarian, so you say, measure, because what 20 or 30 people could go in, because that would make us feel very bad with the people who, for the other reasons, will not be able to come because they are old or because they are children or because whatever. So the rabbinical team, basically a minyan, and the people who are in charge of the technical aspect will be in the synagogue, and we are inviting our kehillah to participate in the different times of kavod, both in the opening of the Ark or the Aliyat Torah, or hold the Torah during Kol Nidre. We will be naming the families, and we will be saying what families are opening symbolically they are on. So this family and that family, symbolically, we dedicate this aliyah to them, and all the families of our communities will thus be present in the different segments of our ceremony. And finally, and I don't know how much time I have left, we are also asking the families to give us the names of the people who they want to remember, especially at ISKOR, because we will be remembering the people, those who lost family member during the course of last year. We will be naming them directly, and those who want to participate will be appearing in a graph at the time of ISKOR. And something similar with the time of Refuah. For many years now, the first Aliyah of Mincha of Yom Kippurim is dedicated to all the people who are going through a disease and they need a bracha for refuah. And the people who are sick or who have a family member or something, all of them come to the aliyah. Maybe hundreds of people want to do it because, and we have to place the Torah in the center of the synagogue because it's a moment of great spirituality, very strong, and this is going to be done this time too. Of course, asking the names to be sent in advance. As for the connection, Guido said something, what appears in the comments during the ceremony. People say hi to one another. At the time of refuah, they send the people the names of the people. At the time of iskor, they send the names. So from different places of the world that they are sharing with us, it's very interesting to see how people connect, even virtually, while the ceremony is ongoing. And finally, something else that we're going to do, and we thought it was important, in the afternoon of Yom Kippur, that famous interruption between Shacharit and Mincha, we will have a series of shiurim pre-recorded. We will be offering, because there are many hours that people will be at home, and we will offer a number of things for people to do, to study. And with several rabbanim who will share with us their thoughts and their reflections on different issues on Teshuvah, Sefer Yonah, etc. We'll have different study blocks for people to choose. Instead of doing anything, maybe they could be inspired by different rabbinims in different chats. I insist, and to close, I think that this is a huge opportunity. I think that bad and difficult things inspire us to change things for the best, for the better, and work, because so that the inevitable aspect that people have to stay at home, turn that into a different experience so that they can learn more and feel more connected, so that the loneliness that each of them is going through may be an opportunity to find themselves in the spiritual dimension, but especially to meet with all the people and all the community, which will also be waiting there.
Thank you, Rabbi Avruj. Beautifully, I feel so inspired to think about all the different ideas that you've offered us to overcome our sense of loneliness and aloneness in our own separate spaces, whether it's by doing the same ritual that we know others are doing in other homes in our community, or whether it's by inspirational videos or live streaming that we can share time together. That sense of connectedness that you're creating is important. At the same time, I think what you're saying is that our ability to create meditative and spiritual moments in our own space is part of what's going to define a meaningful experience this year for the holidays. And that is some work that we've often needed to tend to, but haven't really encouraged in the past. We've been so involved with bringing people into the synagogue that to think about how we could create meaningful spaces where people are physically as well as spiritually is a really powerful idea. And I'm looking forward to seeing the resources that you create. In a moment, we'll turn to a couple of questions that people have submitted. One which a few people submitted was around the Masor. What prayer books are we making available either physically or electronically? So I want to offer a couple of possibilities for people. One is that the Rabbinical Assembly is making an electronic version of the English Masor Lev Shalem, English and Hebrew, and that is available, and you can be in touch with me or the Rabbinical Assembly to find out how to access that. There will also be a version of the Masor available in Spanish electronically, and the Seminario is helping together with Masorti Olami to make that happen, and there'll be more information soon about that, which Masorti Olami will distribute. Many congregations are also taking their Masorim and making them available to the people in their community. Since they've been in storage from before the pandemic, they're finding ways to be able to put them out, and people can either pick them up or have them dropped off at people's homes, so they can use them either in personal prayer or to follow along with whatever service they are doing. So that's also something to consider. And finally, the Rabbinical Assembly is making Masor Lev Shalem available at a reduced price, and congregation can encourage their congregants to purchase them and have them available at home if they want their own personal copy. One question that has come up from a few people, both in registration and even here, is to what extent are you thinking about creating these experiences for your own community versus making them available to the broader Jewish world? And that's in two different ways. One is, to what extent are you thinking about local community versus something that anybody could tune into or make available to them? And second of all, financially, are you limiting your resources to people who are members of your community, or are you just putting them online who wants to find them? So I don't know if we can take one of our respondents. Perhaps Rabbi Cohen, we could start with you.
Thank you. So look, I think that as a rabbi, it would be very narrow-minded if I define myself as someone who works for my synagogue. I work for the Jewish people. The diploma that I have in front of me says that. I have to spread Torah wherever I can. So we are trying to make everything available for the community in general, and maybe beyond that. But I don't have the goal of people in New Jersey watching my service, but I want to serve the Jewish community of North Miami and Aventura. I believe this is a great opportunity for us to put an end to a model that we know is obsolete, which is the model of the pay to pray. Are you a member? Are you not a member? You know, I always joke at my interview when they wanted to hire me here, the executive director asked me, how are you going to bring more members to the shul? And I said, you know what's the difference? No, because we are competing with Chabad. And I said, you know what's the difference between Chabad and us? When they hire a rabbi, they ask him, how is he going to bring the Mashiach? Not how is he going to grow membership. So I'm not in the business of monetizing this. I believe that we should find alternative ways, sponsorship, big donors. We are not going to ask people whether they are members of not or not in order to join our streaming. We're not giving codes. We're not hiding the streaming behind the password. I think that's not the way to go.
Okay. And by the way, I see folks are sharing in the chat room in English and Spanish, any language you want. I'm seeing people who are sharing their own experiences in their communities, what their plans are. And that is amazing. Please keep doing that. Rabbi Fellman, what's the approach in Worcester?
So Worcester, we are lending out our Masorim. When families come by, we also have youth Masorim that they can pick up if they have children or grandchildren who may be participating in our youth services, which for our understanding and approach to halakha will be offered between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So not on the Chag themselves, so that they can do more crafts and activities as well. But we usually have a welcome back barbecue, an open house, which is both for our members and for anyone who wants to learn more about our community. And that's what we're doing in a different form this year, where you can come and pick up machzorim. We're having an ice cream truck available as sort of incentive to get people out. Our USY sells chalot from a local bakery, and if you've pre-ordered those, you'll be able to pick those up as well. We're offering a smaller sized challah this year because we understand that people may not be able to have their whole families over. And we want to acknowledge that the situation is different and help attribute that. And our streaming is going to be open for everyone, not only members, but we are providing a high holiday. We're calling it a BI DIY, so Beth Israel Do-It-Yourself high holiday resource bag that will be a benefit of membership, of those who support and make a commitment. We are sharing that love back. And so there are always benefits of saying, I belong to this community and taking ownership of it from members of the community, but also we have a responsibility to the greater community to say, we are here for you.
Rabbi Avruj, any thoughts?
Sí, en nuestro caso,
In our case,
nosotros estamos compartiendo, por supuesto, todas
we are sharing, of course, all our activities, study spaces, like 5 activities every day for study or for meeting, and obviously all the Shabbat ceremonies and Hagim ceremonies that's open to everybody.
es muy diferente cada comunidad, los ingresos que nosotros
But each community is very different. The income we get in the high holidays are very significant for our budget, but it has also become an opportunity to rethink the notion. And we are very happy to see how our community has understood this notion and no longer sell chairs or places, so that everybody understands the importance of their annual tzedakah or contributions, so that the community can continue to provide all the contents that we provide every year. And we are so happy because of how receptive people were. We are doing it in different stages, first with the members of the community, the people who participated until last year face-to-face, asking them to cooperate with us, paying the same thing that they paid last year. And now it will be the tzedakah that as a family they generously give every year. And we thought that those who are not members but who see us from different parts of the world, that would be fair to have them, to give them the opportunity to collaborate so that the community can continue to provide the contents that we offer every day. We have hundreds of families who follow us from different countries in the world, and that was also well understood. And something very interesting is happening, and that is that before a member would move from the neighborhood where our synagogue is, but now we have 50 family members who don't live in Argentina, and they enjoyed our ceremony and the study spaces, and they thus became members of our community. So we organized another system and another platform for those who want to participate and contributing something, that is to give a small tzedakah to the community and participate in the ceremony. And then later on, we will see whether the services, Neila or Iskor, to be open. That is possible, but the idea is that not everybody pays, but everybody can have the opportunity and feel that they can contribute and collaborate with this community so that this community can continue to offer what it offers and to go on having such creative people to allow them to feel in a community, even being alone at home. Many people also feel happy to have the opportunity of doing this tzedakah.
Beautiful. You know, one of the things that I've been discovering is that people want to feel connected to the experience that they have. And so even if it's available and open, people will often turn to their local community where they know the rabbi, they know the people who are participating. I find that myself when I'm visiting other communities, that while I found lots of powerful experiences, sometimes it feels strange to me because I'm also seeing families and others participating in the Torah service or in other places. And I realize that I'm not really a part of that community, that they have a beautiful community, but I'm not really a part of it. And so I may enjoy some of the prayer and experience, but I also know that I like coming back to my own local community where I know the rabbi, I know the synagogue leaders, and I'm feeling connected. And as Rabbi Cohen talked about, I also know that if I were to be praying for somebody who was ill, somebody would check on me to see how they were doing, or to check on me if I was the one who was ill. And that's powerful. And we need to trust that people really want that local experience as much as they want some sort of big, more anonymous experience. I have one last question for each of our panelists, and then I'm going to turn to Rabbi Shaim to close up today. My question would be, what is the one thing that you most want a person who takes part in one of your experiences this year to feel or to think about or to experience? What's the one thing that you are really pushing towards this year? Maybe one sentence from each person. So first, Rabbi Fellman.
I think that it's no different this year than any other time, where I want them to learn that to feel that they've grown, to feel connected, to feel inspired, to keep learning and growing. I often talk about Judaism as a journey, not a destination. And that is not different this year than any other time. It may just feel different or a detour. But it really is the same general feeling, just as it's the same prayers, the same Torah that we feel enhanced by in different ways.
Beautiful, beautiful. Rabbi Avruj.
Generally, obviously, the experience will be different. And the mere fact of knowing that all of us together, and I've said this, we are writing a page in the history of the Jewish people. We are writing a new page in the history of the Jewish people. In several generations, the Jewish people was subjected to the possibility of not knowing what to do with its culture, its tradition, its tefillah, how to go on, how to move on. And this is our opportunity. And that each may feel that from their own home, when connecting with its own communities, contributing to provide continuity and writing that page in the history. Everybody should feel that they are absolutely necessary right now, that it's not the same to see them on the other side of the screen or not to see them there. And what I always ask my Mitpalelim every year, and I hope this will happen this year too, is that one thing that can be different next year, that they can change one thing next year. If you have 10 things that you want to change, well, at least try and renew your promise to think what will be different this year. One thing.
Amen. And Rabbi Cohen.
Amen. And Rabino Cohen?
So I think the one thing that I want our congregants to learn from this is that the how, the when, and the where may change. The what remains the same. The essence, our essence, is still the same. And I'm also very much looking forward to how the post-pandemic world would look like. I was joking in my sermon last week about the people who always complain because we changed the melody of the Ledor Vador in the past Shabbat. They would give everything to come this next Shabbat, sit in our main sanctuary and change and sing the melody that they dislike. I think the post-pandemic world will help us put things on perspective. We worry too much about mortar and brick, about buildings, about money, and this will be the time to reconnect with our essence. Just one more thing. You said only one, but I'm a rabbi, so you know. The home, the centrality of the Jewish home. This pandemic will put the home back in the center. If you thought that Judaism was something to live vicariously through a rabbi, the pandemic taught you that that's not the case and that you have to build your own Jewish life at home.
And I've been very inspired by each of our panelists today. I thank each of the three of them for their creativity, for their inspiration. It feels good to be on a bridge, walking with each of you towards, I hope, a very wonderful future for the Jewish people and for the world. I have my own ideas for sermons and for meditations for the coming holidays, and also lots of wonderful ideas for how our communities could make these holidays meaningful, purposeful, intentional, and uplifting. And so I'm very excited by that. It's a pleasure to turn to my colleague, Rabbi Philip Scheim from Canada, who will offer us a few words to take us out today.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Blumenthal. And just want to reflect for a moment on a film that I saw yesterday, the new Seth Rogen film, An American Pickle. It's a very bizarre film, but it has a few meaningful moments. I'm not going to go into the detail of this story, but the hero of the film, Herschel, is transported 100 years into the future. He reawakens into contemporary Jewish life and is not happy with what he sees. And so the question comes, were one of us to be transported 100 years into the future, or perhaps now we could say 50 years or 25 years or 5 years, how would we fit into the Jewish community? Would it in any way resemble the Yiddishkeit we now practice? Hard to deal with what the future will look like. Former US Vice President Dan Quayle put it in these words. He said, "It's a question of whether we're going to go forward into the future or past to the back." Rabbi Jacob Blumenthal spoke of the balance between past and future with a lot more eloquence than the former vice president, reminding us how important it is to take care of ourselves and how each of our communities carries its own uniqueness, but we unite in bringing our resources to meet our needs. And so I thank Rabbi Blumenthal for his wonderful job as moderating today's discussion and his incredible work as CEO of the world. I want to thank Rabbi Guido Cohen for reminding us that we are in community building and not in the performance business. There is a world in between coming to shul, he reminded us, and streaming, how we need to engage people, connecting with people where they are. It's the personal connection more than the best sermon or most sophisticated streaming that will make the difference in building community. Rabbi Aviva Fellman reminded us how we need to represent the moral voice exemplified in our traditional and liturgical texts, how we can offer contemporary prayer and interpreting classical prayers so that they speak to the challenges of the moment. Rabbi Fellman also spoke of tshuva In a way that the return to normal is not sufficient, we need to seek improvement on a personal and on a societal level. Finally, Rabbi Alejandro Avruj spoke of building a Beit HaMikdash in our homes, how each home can become a sanctuary, how we need to teach people to perform rituals, whether it be shofar, to conduct appropriate ritual at home in their personal Beit HaMikdash, and how the pandemic has made all of us equal. We share an aloneness, and community becomes the antidote to the virus of loneliness. So I thank all of our wonderful speakers. I thank our executive director, Mauricio Balter, who envisioned this series, our deputy director, Tehila Rubin, who put it all together with an incredible amount of work and dedication, reaching out to everybody involved and to so many others to make today possible. Please accept an invitation in advance to our next event, together with Masorti Israel, which will be a live stream reading of Slichot directly from the Egalitarian Kotel on Sunday, the 13th of September, 10 p.m. Israel time, which translates to 3 p.m. New York time. It will also have simultaneous translation, and more information will follow. To all who attended, to all who participated, to all who led, Toda Rabbah, wishing you, whether it's good afternoon or good evening, and good health and strength and courage in meeting the challenges of today and of the coming Yamim Noraim. Toda Rabbah to all, and Shalom.